folks, today's video is a little bit different. I'm going to show you how to use Raspberry Pi in combination with Arduino, because as we know that Raspberry Pi has great capabilities of interfacing with human because it runs their OS, right? But Arduino has excellent capabilities of I/O, input output, which Raspberry Pi lacks. So their combination would be an ideal thing in terms of robotics, Internet of Things, and many other applications. So today we are going to learn how we can use a Raspberry Pi 4 Model B, which I have here, right here, with a Arduino Uno Rev 3. So we are basically going to use a UART protocol or serial communication protocol, also known as serial communication. Why? Because as we know that Raspberry Pi runs on ARM Cortex A7, which has a 3.3 volt logic, and Arduino Uno is a AVR based development board which uses Atmega 328P, which uses 5 volt logic. So as long as we are using we are using I2C communication, I2C, I2C, or whatever you guys might say, we can use Raspberry Pi as master and Arduino as slave connection, because as we know that master defines the voltage level, the communication voltage level. So Arduino is fine with 3.3 volts because it also has 3.3 volts in it, and some couple of pull-up resistors which might pull it up to 5 volts as it needs. But the Raspberry Pi works at most at 3.3 volts. So if that gets a logic higher than 3.3 volts, it might damage itself. So we need a logic level shifter for that kind of purpose. But logic level shifters are somehow costly for me. They are 120 rupees in India, and maybe in Chandni market or somewhere else you might find them in a little bit cheaper. But as we use UART or serial communication, there is no such logic level problem, because both of them are connected with a USB to serial connector. Here it is a serial port on Arduino which we use to connect with our computer, and here we have the USB ports of the Raspberry Pi, which works itself as a computer. But we need some prior knowledge of programming and some prior knowledge of these two things. But as we know, this channel is not for beginners. This is to show you what we can do with these things and what not, and some more project ideas indeed. So I'm not going to cover the basics, but some of you guys have told me to go for the basics. So let me know in the comments below what tutorial series should I start first. I will really appreciate that. But the point here is I just want to establish a UART protocol between these two things and turn on these LEDs as my will. So I have connected this Raspberry Pi in headless mode with my laptop. As here you can see, the Raspberry Pi's desktop is running on my laptop. This is called the headless mode because the Raspberry Pi is not using any monitor or something. It is just working remotely. It is sending its data over the internet to the client computer, which is my laptop in this case. And the Arduino is the slave of the Raspberry Pi, because the Raspberry Pi is the master in this case, because the Raspberry Pi will give orders to this Arduino Uno, and the Arduino Uno will perform its input or output or whatever thing it is. So the circuit connection in this case is pretty minimalistic. I have just connected this ground with these LEDs cathode and the anodes of the LEDs with different pins. Here you can see I have connected with pin 10, 11, 12 and 13. So this is my circuitry. But what about the program? As I told you earlier, I'm not going to complete the basics here, because the program of course lies in the domain of basics, because if you don't know how to program them, you cannot use them. But there is a trick that I used here, is that I wrote a program for this Arduino for the serial communication using serial library, and I uploaded that previously with this ISP cable. You can see this is connected directly with my laptop here, and I have done this several times, and this is the safest way, I can tell you that. If it is even safer than I2C. So I have uploaded the program previously on this Arduino Uno, and that program is just running on this Arduino Uno and waiting for the instructions to be sent from this Raspberry Pi. And on this Raspberry Pi, here we can see a Python code running, which Python code has created a graphical user interface for us. Here you can see 4 buttons. Whatever button I will press, it will perform some action. I have used tkinter library in this case. You can go ahead and learn how to use tkinter on the internet. And again, if you want me to teach you guys, just let me know in the comments. So here you can see that there are 4 buttons: LED 1, LED 2, LED 3 and LED 4. Suppose I pressed LED 1, what happened? You can see that my first LED is glowing. Now I press that button again, that LED turned off. I press that again, turned on, turned off. Same for the next cases also. I can turn them on and off at my will. I can even turn all of them on at the same time. However, that will limit the current, that will divide the current, so the LEDs might glow a little dimmer, but that's not the point here. We are controlling our Arduino using the Raspberry Pi. That's the main thing. And you guys might not find this kind of topic on the YouTube anywhere else, because this is a unique thing. Nobody probably has tried this before. So the point of that on me. So this is something good. You can try this at home if you have a Raspberry Pi or something. And again, just let me know if you guys want me to record a basics tutorial video. Goodbye.